bold move, flight attendants strike back as Air Canada execs FLE in panic. In a historic and unprecedented move, Air Canada flight attendants have defied not one, but two federal back-to-work orders, igniting a national debate that extends beyond labor rights into the realms of corporate greed and government intervention. This bold stand has not only disrupted the airline industry but has also sent shockwaves through Canadian politics, challenging the status quo and demanding a comprehensive reevaluation of labor relations across the country. The Canadian Union of Public Employees, CUPE, which represents over 10,000 flight attendants, initiated the strike on August 16, 2025, after negotiations with Air Canada broke down dramatically. The union's demands were built around the core issues of fair compensation for unpaid ground work, such as boarding and deplaning, as well as necessary adjustments to wages that have failed to keep pace with rising inflation. Despite Air Canada's offer of a 38% wage increase over 4 years, CUPE argued that this proposal fell short, particularly since many attendants were still earning below the federal minimum wage. The union emphasized the essential nature of the duties performed by its members, duties that were not being adequately compensated. This led to widespread frustration and a growing sense of injustice among the workforce, as the attendants felt their work was undervalued and disregarded by corporate management. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government intervened by invoking Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code, directing the Canada Industrial Relations Board, CIRB, to order the flight attendants back to work. However, CUPE leaders, including National President Mark Hancock, expressed their willingness to face jail time rather than comply with what they viewed as an unjust order. Hancock criticized the government's actions, arguing that they undermined workers' constitutional rights and favored corporate profits over fair labor practices. The union's defiance highlighted a deep-seated belief in the fundamental importance of standing up for workers' rights, even in the face of legal and political pressure. This act of defiance resonated with many Canadians who saw it as a critical moment for labor rights in the country. The strike, which lasted nearly 4 days, caused significant disruptions for hundreds of thousands of passengers, forcing Air Canada to suspend its financial forecasts for the quarter and the entire year. The airline CEO, Mike Rousseau, expressed shock over the union's defiance of the CIRB ruling, labeling the strike as illegal and harmful to the airline's customers and brand. Rousseau's comments underscored the tension that exists between corporate interests and the demands of frontline workers, emphasizing the challenges both sides face when navigating labor disputes. The strike not only impacted the airline's operations but also drew national media attention, further amplifying the voices of the flight attendants. Despite the government's intervention, public support for the flight attendants remained robust. Abacus data polls indicated that both Liberal and Conservative voters overwhelmingly sympathized with the workers and agreed they should be compensated for all duties performed, including those not directly related to in-flight services. Even among traditionally pro-business segments of the population, many viewed Air Canada's treatment of its employees as outrageous and unjust. This widespread support reflected a growing recognition of the need for fair labor practices and equitable compensation in the workplace, signaling a shift in public sentiment regarding workers' rights. The dispute also brought to light potential conflicts of interest within oversight bodies. Maurice Trumbull, a former legal counsel for Air Canada, was overseeing the case at the CIRB, raising serious concerns about impartiality and systemic favoritism toward corporate interests over ordinary workers. This revelation fueled criticism of the government's handling of the situation and sparked a broader conversation about the fairness of the arbitration process. Critics argued that the involvement of individuals with ties to the company undermined the credibility of the decisions being made and further eroded public trust in the system designed to protect workers' rights. After intense negotiations, a mediated settlement was reached on August 19, 2025, leading to the end of the strike. The tentative 4-year agreement included provisions for boarding pay, which CUPE hailed as a transformational change and a potential template for future negotiations in the airline industry. This settlement marked a significant victory for the flight attendants, demonstrating the power of collective action in achieving meaningful change. It also set a precedent for other industries grappling with similar issues of unpaid labor and wage stagnation, inspiring workers across various sectors to advocate for fair treatment. This labor dispute underscores a broader issue. Canadian governments, regardless of political affiliation, have historically leaned toward employer interests in labor conflicts. The Carney government's intervention in this case has been criticized as a major misstep, with political commentator Tom Mulcair labeling it one of the worst messes since Carney's election. The government's actions have sparked a reevaluation of its stance on labor rights, raising critical questions about its commitment to supporting working-class Canadians. The backlash from unions and workers' advocates has put significant pressure on the administration to reconsider its approach and prioritize fair labor practices moving forward. The flight attendants' resistance, bolstered by widespread union solidarity and public support, illustrates the limits of corporate control when workers collectively assert their rights. Their defiance and the backing of the public signal that this fight is far from over and may reshape how labor relations are approached in Canada in the years to come. The strike has galvanized a movement advocating for workers' rights and has inspired similar actions in other sectors, signaling a shift toward greater labor activism and advocacy for fair treatment in the workplace. In conclusion, the Air Canada labor crisis reflects a clash between corporate power, government intervention, and the demands of everyday workers. It exposes deep inequities, fuels public scrutiny, and reminds Canadians that industrial fairness is not merely optional, it is foundational to a functioning society. The flight attendants' bold stand has not only secured immediate gains but also established a precedent for future labor negotiations, challenging the status quo and advocating for dignity, recognition, and accountability in the workplace. This pivotal moment in Canadian labor history underscores the importance of solidarity, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the right to fair treatment for all workers.